I'm really delighted to be here. I'm going to start while my friend is trying to get my PowerPoint. I'm really delighted to be here, and what I'm going to present is part of a It's part of a broader project of reflection on what is actually new in what we called, wrongly or rightly, the Arab Spring. And I would like to shift in my talk. My paper was very short, so it's like 6 pages, but it's really part of a broader project. And I am finishing with my friend and colleague Frances Hasso a book, an edited volume, on the geographies of gender in the Arab revolutions. So this is kind of an ongoing project, but this is a very particular part of it in which I'm not talking about the mass revolutionary body that marked the visual memories of the Arab uprising with those massive protests and entangled bodies of men and women in the streets. What I'm going to do here, I am borrowing the notion of personal revolutions from a Saudi feminist blogger, Noura Abdul Karim. She's the one who coined that term, that phrase of personal revolutions. And Noura Abdul Karim was thinking about this proliferation of voices and bodies on the internet by women from all kinds of contexts. But she was more particularly thinking about Loujain El-Hadloul. Loujain El-Hadloul is another feminist, Saudi feminist blogger, and she posted what you see here in Arabic, and I'm going to show you the translation in English. She posted on her Kik account, Unveiled, I am proud that I am a female, proud of my identity. This is my face, and this is my name, and these are my actions. I do not know hypocrisy, but I was born into a society that only values the superficial manifestations of piety. So while analyzing this kind of proliferation of bodies and voices on the net, Noura Abdul Karim coined personal revolutions. And from there, I am talking, while reflecting on this phrasing, I coined the term of micro-rebellious bodies to account for some of what was going on and in the underbelly of the revolution and at its margins. Stories that get to the news, but other stories that never made it to the news. So I'll be giving a few examples, only a few examples for the sake of time, because I don't think I have time to develop entirely my thought about this. Let's start by what is very well known in what was made known in the media and also in feminist circles, which is the nude body, right? In mid-March 2013, the 19-year-old Amina Taylor, who was allegedly a feminine member or sympathizer, posted 2 topless pictures of herself on the internet. She's from Tunisia, and she marked her chest with the expression "fuck your morals," and in Arabic, "my body belongs to me and is not anybody's honor." The controversy over Amina's semantic of the body, I would like to argue, inspired another groups of women to open sections of Femen online in many countries, including my own country, Morocco, and to start to post naked on their Facebook pages. I'm not going to talk about Femen because I think you are familiar with this, but I can say more if you wish. But it was Ali al-Mahdi, Egyptian Ali al-Mahdi, who transformed her nude body into a script during the Egyptian uprising. On October 23, 2011, Ali al-Mahdi stood naked in her blog, A Rebel's Diary. Her provocative nude art and the controversy that followed revealed the articulation of what they call a new feminist aesthetics in the region, unveiled by the iconography of the nude body. So unlike those protesting in Tahrir Square, Alia's inflammatory pose, whether standing nude, alone, or with a man under her knees, does not easily obey the norms of a collective action framework as we knew it before. Amina's topless picture does not conform to the norms of collective framework, but also to the norms of what we've known in the 80s, the NGOization of feminist mobilization. So how do we understand those new forms? And I'll get to this at the end of this talk, hopefully. Alia, Amina, and other subversive individual acts announce what Noor Abdul Karim actually called personal revolutions, or what I call micro-rebellions with rhizomic power, proliferating in the fluidity and interwoven pathways of the cyberspace. Amina and Alia's micro-revolutions are less in tune with old feminist mobilization in the region that have so far marginalized the body and sexuality, but they and favored state laws, especially reforming family laws in the region. But they are more in concert with middle-class, neoliberal secular subjectivities and entrepreneurial forms of self-promotion, self-reliance, and self-governance, and we had no conversation together before coming here. While some of these micro-rebellions have become central to the revolutionary imaginary, notably after Mohammed al-Bouazizi's self-immolation, others remain marginal to the mainstream revolutionary narrative, but left an enduring mark on the cyberspace. This is the case of Moroccan Fadwa Al-Arwi, the single mother of two, who, inspired by Mohammed al-Bouazizi, set herself on fire, this time by eliminating rather than by asserting her body. And on February 21st of 2011, only a few months after Bouazizi's act, Fadwa Al-Arwi burned herself in front of the town hall of Sokhsebt, which is a small agricultural town close to Casablanca. The authorities destroyed the shack in which she lived with her two children and parents, and denied her access to social housing because she was told because she was a single mother and she'd rather go and live with her parents. How many of you have heard of Fadwa Al-Arwi's case? Okay. And how many of you have heard of Amina Taylor or Ali Al-Mahdi's case? More people. Okay. So on the YouTube video documenting her self-immolation, we hear her speak as she was taking fire, narrating her story in the first person and leaving an enduring trace of the causes of her death in the virtual space. She said, "How can I give away my children because I have no way to live with them? Tell me, can you abandon your children? They call me crazy. Have you ever seen a crazy person fighting to keep her children? Where do I go now? I have no one but God." The heartbreaking scene of Fadwa's self-burning exposes the spectator to a sensorial, visual, and emotional performance of a body that refuses to submit to normative regulation of vulnerable femininity through a protective patriarchal order. As a matter of fact, Fadwa's father, who shared her shack, could have applied for the housing in her name. But Fadwa believed in her right to get a replacement home, even as a single mother. She wanted that right without a male's mediation. Fadwa's death could have gone unnoticed if not for the few protests led in her name, and you can see some of this. It's a Facebook page put up by some activists, cyber activists in her name. Except from some of the few protests led in her name by the February 28th movement of protest in Morocco that started also at the same time as the Arab uprising in the Middle East and North Africa. The new feminist protest in which her photo was carried, and the Facebook page created by netizens to force her into a more enduring presence, virtual presence. Online, Fadwa became an icon of subversive maternity, widely opening the debate about paternity laws and the rights of single mothers in a Muslim country. Likewise, Amina and Fadwa and Alia, Fadwa Al-Arwi took up her own rebellion against gendered sexual violence and institutionalized state corruption. Fedwa's plot was traded for cash, she was told, and her several attempts to claim it were rejected because of her status of single mother. That's the reason they were giving her. Like Amina and Alia, Fedwa undertook her own revolution. But unlike them, she does not represent urban middle-class sensibilities and political desires, nor she engages in assertive femininity through the nude body as a new site of political mobilization and transnational competing disciplinary regimes of governance. Rather, Fedwa's death invites us to consider politics and resistance from the standpoint of subalternity and necropolitics. But are these individual acts isolated from the dynamics of collective and mass movements that we have seen across North Africa and the Middle East? The gender trauma of the Arab Spring, virginity tests, organized sexual harassment campaigns, suicides, and so on, have triggered a plethora of individual acts of dissent, and we go to the everyday, the macro level resistance. Individual acts of dissent that were not as central to the narrative of the revolution were the visual memories of masses occupying the streets. Nevertheless, Alia and Amina's body politics fuel an already tense revolutionary scene without being contained by it. As state oppression takes on more microphysical form, targeting the naked, solitary body and body parts, virginity checks is an example, women's responses may become much more individualized and much more radical. And this is from Pratt, Nicola Pratt. Whether this new feminism takes the form of naked art, that's of Alia al-Mahdi or Amina Taylor, or appears to be less provocative, like the unveiling of Saudi Lujain al-Hadlout on her Kik account, we are witnessing the return of the repressed, the body and sexuality. What better illustrates this than the following statement posted by Lujain Hadlout, which I already presented earlier. I'm proud that I'm a female, proud of my identity. This is my face, these are my words, these are my actions. Alia, Amina, Lujain, and Fedwa's acts do not fit into the patriarchal model of respectability, protection, and cause of honor that my friend Paul wrote so much about. Unlike the old feminist reliance on the state, the rise of these bodies and body politics and speech acts point to this new feminism's disillusionment. That's not the right way, but it's okay. I think you got it. With the state as a channel for gender justice. As Alia likes to remind us, and from their plural locations, or from plural locations, the new feminism interrogates the old sites where mobilization used to take place in contained NGO spaces and institutionalized politics. This new feminism, I would like to argue, and I'm finishing, is plural, anti-establishment, and anti-conformist, as with feminist members. It is informed by an anthology of dignity and individual rights, as for Fedwa al-Arawi's death indicates. It prospers in the fluidity, connectivity, and interwoven maps of the cyberspace. Its cultural imaginaries are projected through cyber production of images and sounds and signs. Whether we think about Femen or the slut walk that was going to take place in Morocco, Alia or Amina, we are witnessing the rise of a new generation of feminists whose subjectivities are articulated around sexual liberties, individual freedoms, religious choice, the right to subversion, self-expression. As this columnist in the pan-Arab daily newspaper Al-Quds Al-Arabi accurately summarized, Alia, by the simple act of displaying her nudity, is trying in her bold way to raise questions that embarrass society in its most embarrassing locus, which is the example of youth that direct their bare chest to bullets.
We'll now have Julie Hemmant from the University of Massachusetts speaking on diverse technologies, circulating forms. pro-state appropriations and protest repertoires in Russia. And you should know I don't count the technology transfer as part of people's time.